Live with CDP Sports Talk, a weekly sports and entertainment podcast sponsored by Barry Cullen Chevrolet. Live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and LinkedIn. And on audio via Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Spotify, Anchor FM, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Radio Public, and TuneIn. Now, here's your host, Chris Palme.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Season 9, Episode 23, overall 463 of Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show, sponsored by Barry Cullen Chevrolet Dealership at 905 Woodlawn Road West in the Guelph Auto Mall. Check out barrycullen.com for the newest selection of new and pre-owned GM vehicles, along with their great selection of all-electric vehicles and Cadillac products. You can call the dealership at 519-824-0210. Tom Chris Palme sent you, or email them at info@barrycullen.com. Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show is now sponsored by Wellington Brewery, founded in 1985, located at 950 Woodlawn Road West here in Guelph, Ontario. Check out their website, wellingtonbrewery.ca. Try a welly on, and please remember to drink responsibly as well. I hope everyone's doing well on this Thursday, December 5th, 2024. A little chilly day here in Southern Ontario with some snow, -6 Celsius temperatures. And we have a big Thursday night football game tonight between the Green Bay Packers and the Detroit Lions at 8:15. I have a special guest with us tonight, and this is his third time on our show, and his name is Bob Socci. He is the longtime radio play-by-play voice of the New England Patriots on 98.5 The Sports Hub in Boston. And we're going to bring on Bob and talk a little Patriots and maybe a little bit about Drake May. Good evening, Bob. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Chris. I thought maybe we could talk about your ball cap that you're wearing with the logo of the Grey Cup champion Toronto Argonauts. It takes me back to my youth and thinking about Conridge Holloway and the Argos watching CFL games on CBC as a kid. And of course, trying to at least stay in touch with the league now, given my full-time responsibilities in the NFL.
Good news about the CFL. They are now back on CTV, which is available in the States, and also on CBS Sports Network. And as for the Argonauts, their 19th Grey Cup championship win over Winnipeg. Winnipeg went to their 5th straight Grey Cup and unfortunately lost their 3rd straight Grey Cup. But the Argonauts defense in that game in BC, 5 takeaways, and they cashed in for 27 points. It doesn't matter if you're in the CFL or the NFL or college football, Bob. When your defense takes away the ball and gets a pick six, that defense wins championships.
And turnovers are very predictive in either league, I'm sure, in the CFL like they are in the NFL, Chris. And that's been a big part of the story for the Patriots in recent years. Too many turnovers, not enough takeaways over the course of the last couple of seasons especially. But here we are. It's good to be with you again.
Well, thank you so much. And since I saw you last, I was on a radio station in Georgia for almost 2 years. I've gotten a couple of sponsors, and I've also done some media work for the Argos, the Buffalo Bisons, which I absolutely love. Minor league baseball, by the way. And I know you did many years calling games there. And the Buffalo Bandits of the National Lacrosse League, which is another great sport, too.
Yeah, I'll tell you a quick story about the Buffalo Bisons. I did do a lot of games in the International League, and even when the Bisons were in the American Alliance, the American Association, as part of the AAA Alliance, back in the days when I was with the Rochester Red Wings, just beginning my broadcasting career. And in particular, Buffalo is very important to me and the ballpark in Buffalo, because I was there for a doubleheader between the Pawtucket Red Sox and the Bisons in April of 2013, when it was announced in Boston that I was hired as the Patriots play-by-play broadcaster. And my first appearance on our flagship radio station was in the back of the press box there during an interview on the afternoon drive time show, while the Paw Sox and the Bisons were playing a matinee doubleheader in front of about 100 fans on just an absolutely miserable, wet and cold day in Western New York. But it brings back good memories for sure.
Bisons are Bisons are a first-class organization, and for me, who's trying to get into the radio industry, these guys I can relate to because they're all hungry to get into the major leagues, and it's been great being down at the ballpark. And if I lived closer to Buffalo, I'd probably be at every Bisons game at Salem Field. It's just a first-class organization, and I really enjoy minor league baseball too.
Yeah, and the Bisons, of course, have a great history. The city of Buffalo and baseball. Not to get too sidetracked here, but many listeners may know. I guess if they're old enough to remember the movie with Robert Redford, The Natural, it was filmed at an old War Memorial Park, the Rock Pile, I think, as it was known, and
Yes.
the former home of Buffalo. And the Bisons really, when I came of age as a young broadcaster trying to get into the business, they were the model franchise in all of minor league baseball. They were drawing 1 million fans per season under the ownership of the Rich family. And there was a period of time, short as it was, when Buffalo was strongly considered to be a future Major League Baseball expansion city. I'm glad that while Buffalo remains at the AAA level, that the Blue Jays have done what they've done with Rogers Center. Had a chance to go there this past summer to watch a game between the Sox and the Jays, and that at least Toronto remains a strong franchise in the major leagues because, again, as a kid, I mentioned CBC. I watched a lot of Expos games as a kid along with Blue Jays games. And I saw a lot of teams in Canada during my minor league baseball career eventually move out of Canada to the States. It was very disappointing to see because, so many of those places were really great baseball environments. And, as I said, I don't want to get too sidetracked, but it's good to chat with you. And we'll have to do it sometime off the air so we don't take up so much of your time on the podcast or your radio show.
Absolutely, Bob. And I'm hoping to get to Gillette Stadium. I'm hoping one day to get to Gillette Stadium. I've been to Boston. I love the city and the state, and I'm really hoping to get to Gillette Stadium. I guess you guys have a lot of new renovations to the stadium, especially that massive scoreboard.
Yeah, brand new video board, the largest outdoor video board when it was built last year. New lighthouse at Gillette Stadium that allows fans to go up on non-game days and get a great look at not only the Foxborough, Massachusetts area, but beyond Boston in one direction, beyond Providence in the other direction, especially in October when it's peak foliage time in New England. It's a great spot to go. But more than that, too, this year, in the next year plus, so the Patriots are building a new football facility that will be state of the art, and that's something that was just announced in the last day or so. So there's always a lot going on around Patriot Place, Gillette Stadium. As you mentioned, the video board part of a major renovation last year to the north end zone, and it's really continuing to evolve as a facility and the home of the Pats. But more importantly, Chris, right now is the rebuilding process that is taking place for the Patriots, and how they get back to where they were as a Super Bowl contender year after year.
It will happen. And before we get into the Patriots, I just wanted to get your quick thoughts on Bill Belichick's transition from a head coach into a media star. And did you see this happening with Bill?
Not to the extent that it is in terms of the volume of appearances he makes on social media and television. He did a series with Rich Eisen several years ago on the NFL Network, the NFL 100, where they sat in a studio at NFL Films and talked about the greatest players of all time, but also interviewed many of those players, the NFL's top 100 players, as selected by a panel. And Bill was terrific on that, and the show received an Emmy, and Bill might have even received an individual Emmy award for that. He's an incredibly smart individual. Obviously, he knows football. You don't see it when he's coaching a team in his press conferences. At least we didn't see it on a regular basis, if at all, during the season, particularly on a Wednesday when he was really just beginning the game week with his team. You didn't see that sense of humor, the lighter side of Belichick, but it's always been there according to people who know him best. And so I guess it shouldn't be that surprising. But I am a bit surprised overall, though, at the number of appearances that he's making. I don't watch a lot of them, frankly. I hear a lot of clips and the cut-ups on our radio station and in local media through other outlets. But I'm not watching Inside the NFL. I'm not listening to Jim Gray, Let's Go. I'm not listening to Pat McAfee watching his show. But I get enough of it. And some of it I really can appreciate, and you learn from. And there have been some things too this year that with regards to the Patriots that and unfortunately I think that from my standpoint, I thought that the Patriots might have in the case of Bill's analysis, that you go back to the Week 1 win over Cincinnati and some of the other games that they played, they might have a more prominent place, so to speak. But I can understand in other ways why not.
Bob, wanted to get your thoughts on the Patriots' latest loss, a heartbreaker. I listened to you and Scott the last few minutes, and 25-24 loss to the Colts at Gillette Stadium, and that's their 5th loss this year by 5 points or less in winnable games.
Yeah, Chris, they're a team that's going through a rebuilding phase, as we know, with a rookie quarterback, and really with a roster that, although it includes a handful of players re-signed off of last year, including some players that were drafted by the Patriots, they've really kind of stripped the team down, and now building around Drake May going forward. It was seen to be a difficult year in all the preseason prognostications. I think you looked around the NFL, people talked about the Patriots. I think as the season began, in fact, the odds makers in Vegas might have had the Patriots as the odds-on favorite to have the number 1 pick come 2025. So where they are record-wise shouldn't be surprising in a lot of respects based on what the expectations were coming in. But I mentioned that Cincinnati game and the way the season started, and they were in position to win the next game against Seattle. And there have been other games, including, really 2 of the last 3 especially, but mostly the last one. I say 2 of the last 3. The Rams game, the Los Angeles game, was winnable. It came down to single possession, and they fell short in that one. And then, of course, the Indianapolis game comes down to a 2-point conversion and then a last-second attempt at a 68-yard field goal. So you look at that game and the Rams game in particular, the most recent affairs for the Patriots to lose close games. I think the real story, though, is just the overall season as part of a rebuilding process. The play of Drake May, his development, that's been certainly for them the thing to hang the hat on this year. Now they got to build a lot of people around him and put people in place, and you kind of learn from this process with a first-year head coach and a very young coaching staff in terms of its experience. First-year offensive coordinator, at least the full-time play caller, although he's an older coach. Nonetheless, this is his first year calling plays full-time. Alex Van Pelt, the former Buffalo Bill. You have a first-year defensive coordinator. You have a first-year special teams coordinator. Both of those guys, DC DeMarcus Covington and special teams coordinator Jeremy Springer, are very youthful. So you look at them and you want to see the growth of this team going forward. Well, you've got to build around May, put people in place, and then the coaches will evolve as well, one anticipates. And so you start winning those close games as opposed to falling short of them. Look back at last year under Bill Belichick, the Patriots struggled in close games too. And there were various reasons for that. They turned the ball over too often. As I talked about, Mac Jones in particular had a really difficult season with turnovers. And a lot of them came at very inopportune times in scoring range. At the same time, they had a place kicker who really struggled through last year, though he has since rebounded very, very well out in Arizona, Chad Ryland. But there were a number of games that were 1-possession, 2-possession games that could have completely been turned around by a made field goal here and an opportunity to kick a field goal instead of the ball going the other way after an interception or turnover in other respects. So it's part of the process, and you're absolutely right. It was a very winnable game. I think it's a very disappointing loss for them, particularly the way the game ended with the Colts driving for better than 5 minutes, 19 plays, converting 3 fourth downs, and winning ultimately on a touchdown pass by Anthony Richardson and then a 2-point run by Richardson.
What did you think of them going with Joey Sly's field goal attempt instead of the Hail Mary? Because I listened to you and Scott's call, and I was convinced it was going through. And then I saw the replay of it, and I think if it was 67 or 66 yards, that kick would have been good. He nailed that kick.
Yeah, he really did. And I think part of the thing about the field goal Hail Mary for me, and I get it, a Hail Mary, at least there have been passes, including this year, that have been completed in that fashion. and there has never been a 68-yard field goal made in the NFL. But I kind of feel like either way, and this is going to sound like it's a pun intended. For lack of a better way of phrasing it, I think it is really a prayer in either case, a long shot in either case when you're talking about that situation. I took some solace from the fact that the Patriots were able to at least execute and get themselves in position to make that decision with 1 second to go. They looked like they were organized. You may not like the end result, and maybe you could have felt like they could have used one of those timeouts at a different stage on defense when Indianapolis was driving for the lead. But the way they used their timeouts, the way they took what was given to them underneath and got themselves to around midfield to at least put themselves in position where you can make a choice between a field goal and an extra point. Again, maybe I shouldn't feel this way in the NFL, but having seen other teams mismanage late game situations like that, not give themselves a chance to throw a Hail Mary or try to kick a last second field goal, I thought at least there was a positive sign in what other people would view as a very negative outcome. The thing about a field goal like that, Sly had made from 50 plus earlier in the game. Sly's hit from 63 as a Patriot this year. As a coach too, you base your decision maybe on the information you accumulate pregame. So if he's out there hitting a 60-yarder in pregame warmups, well, you ask the special teams coordinator, you ask the kicker, okay, how'd you feel on that kick? You try to judge. Well, that would have been good from 65. It would have been good from 60, whatever the distance might be. And so I think it's a decision that in part is based on information that you take into account, from pregame warmups, from the evidence the kicker's showing you. Just because it's cold and windy doesn't mean that kick can't be made. On the flip side, it could mean that kick can't be made based on what you've seen through the game and what you experienced during pregame warmups. The other part about it for me, Chris, too, is if you're talking about a Hail Mary, okay, now number one, you got to get your receivers and get down there in time to allow the quarterback to get the pass off with the protection in time. And even if the other team is rushing only 2-3 guys, this Patriots offensive line has really struggled all season long. So maybe there wasn't a huge degree of confidence that, one, they'd be able to hold up in protection to give Drake May the chance to launch that pass, or two, for the guys who are going to go down there, do they have anybody who's shown that ability to go up at a high point a pass when it's being well defended in that case? And again, at least there is a track record. There is some history of those Hail Marys being completed, but I didn't really have a huge problem with that. My bigger issue with the game is something that we could discuss at greater length. That's just the disappointing performance of the defense, and especially on that final drive.
One thing too, Bob, I can't believe how good these kickers are compared to 20, 30 years ago. Do you believe you're going to see in your career at some point, Bob, broadcasting games, a 70-yard field goal at some point?
I do, Chris. I do. And I think we've seen Tucker, who's having a tough year for the Ravens, hit a record kick from nearly that distance indoors. We've seen Aubrey for the Cowboys, who's kind of a late kicker to football kicking. He was a former soccer player at Notre Dame and in the MLS. We've seen
Toronto FC too.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have seen him convert 65 with seemingly relative ease. And you do look at the kickers today; they train much differently than they used to. The kicking camps and the kicking clinics that are year round. The guys that are coming into the NFL today have, in a lot of cases, if not most cases, have far more extensive kicking backgrounds than guys that I've covered. Stephen Gostkowski, he went to Memphis on a baseball scholarship as a pitcher, and he kicked as well. That was really his third choice as a sport when he was in high school. He was a baseball player, he was a soccer standout, and he kicked in football. Because as he told me one time, if you're on the football team, you got an extra workout period at the end of the school day. So he went out for the football team. They needed a kicker, and he kicked. He goes to Memphis again on a partial baseball scholarship as a relief pitcher, and winds up kicking for Memphis. And then he has a long career, and he becomes the leading scorer in New England Patriots history. And other guys have had that path, where they kind of found their way late to full-time kicking. But I think what you're seeing now more and more are these kids that are coming up through all these kicking camps and kicking clinics. And again, they're training differently. The conditions are more favorable for them in a lot of cases because they're playing more games indoors, more games on turf these days. So I think you will see before too long some guys start to hit 70-yard field goals.
Absolutely. And being a Michigan Wolverines fan, that was the difference in the game against Ohio State. Michigan's kicker hit a 54-yard kick, and Ohio State's kicker, unfortunately, missed a couple, I think, from 44 and
Yeah,
38.
and Chris, and it brings up a good point too. But going back to the Patriots game against Indianapolis, the game comes down to that field goal try, and it's left just short by Sly. But the end of the first half, it concluded with a missed 25-yard field goal attempt. And you go back during the course of the game, and again, I understand like when we relitigate these situations, and you first guess or second guess a coaching decision. Why did they go for this? Why didn't they go for two? Why didn't they call that timeout? In that spot. I think for me the more important thing right now of the state of this Patriots is, okay, how did they get to those points? And when I look back at the first half, there were just too many missed opportunities in the red zone, including that last drive in the first half when Sly missed a 25-yard field goal attempt. And there might have been an issue in the operation snapper to holder to kicker. And the same thing with the end of the game. Okay, it comes down to the last field goal attempt. But really, for me, the more foundational problem is how did the Colts get downfield and take the lead with Anthony Richardson at quarterback? And how are they able to convert those fourth downs? And how are they able to get plays out of guys that don't typically make plays for them offensively, speaking of their tight ends?
Absolutely. Bob, I wanted to get focus on the positives of this team because I do feel this team has made some positive steps going forward. Obviously, with Drake May, I believe is going to be a quarterback in this league for a long time. What are some of the other positives on this 2024 New England Patriots team and going forward to 2025? What do you, as media and the radio guy and the fan base, want to see from this Patriots team the last four games of the season? Obviously, they have a bye week this week, but Arizona and then Buffalo a couple times, and then a very improved LA Chargers team.
Yeah, because I think a couple of things that I'll touch on. The two first-round picks in the last 2 years. You think about Drake May at quarterback. That's the most important piece for the Patriots. Most important piece for anybody in football. And what we've seen thus far in his sample size, and granted it's less than half a season of the NFL to this point with his 8 starts, and he's got 4 more to go if he stays healthy. But what we've seen from Drake May in his continual development and the way he has continually improved in all facets of quarterback play and the way he's handled himself off the field, how he's handled the media, how he's been a leader in the locker room, the way he's protected teammates in post-game press conferences. I think all the signs are there that this guy has all the ability in the world. And as important, the right temperament and the right makeup to be a guy that is your franchise quarterback, not only for the near future, but really for the long term, again, presuming health. He's athletic. He's got the arm strength. He reads defense. He's made tremendous adjustments going from his offense at North Carolina to the NFL. So that's number one. You look at Christian Gonzalez, the first round pick from 2023 as a cornerback who was injured 4 games into the season in week 5 last year and didn't play again as a rookie. Well, what we've seen from him is that he has the opportunity to be an elite cornerback. He has the opportunity to be a guy who plays his career for the New England Patriots, like Ty Law for most of his career in the NFL, or Stephon Gilmore and Darrelle Revis did late in their careers, a real shutdown, high level, top tier cornerback. I mean, Gonzalez, that guy. I think there's some other players who've improved individually. The tight end group has had a good season. Hunter Henry and Austin Hooper, but those guys are older. They're closer to the end of their careers. So what we want to see the next 4 games, from our broadcast booth, Scott Zolak and I, as we've discussed things, is some of the other young guys to emerge, particularly on offense. The Patriots drafted Jalen Polk in the 2nd round, Javon Baker in the 4th round. There are 2 wide receivers who've had really difficult rookie seasons. And, you'd like to see them take some positive steps these next 4 games to allow themselves to go into the offseason, not having to answer the questions in the spring about, why they struggle throughout their rookie year, but instead go in with, an opportunity to say, I'm going to build on that. And for the organization to know, you know what, we saw something there that last month of the season that we didn't see the first part of the first 13 games. And the same thing on the offensive line. Layden Robinson returned to the starting lineup, a rookie. Caden Wallace has been hurt, unfortunately, another rookie offensive lineman who was drafted last year. They've got to revamp that offensive line. They have to add to the receiving core. So those are areas that I think are foremost among the concerns. And then defensively, too, it's been a disappointing year for them. They got hit with some injuries early, some really key injuries, and they're still suffering from the loss of linebacker and captain Juwan Bentley. But there are some guys on that defense that you'd like to see emerge in these next 4 games and show that they can go into the offseason, the Patriots, with a high degree of confidence that, okay, those guys are going to make plays for us next year. And that includes Christian Barmore, who was diagnosed with blood clots back in training camp and missed most of this season, and he's only come back recently after having a breakout season last year for the Patriots as a real explosive player from the defensive line. But there are some others as well.
So right now you would feel, covering the team, that next year, going into next year, the O-line and the receivers are the biggest areas where they need to improve upon next year.
I think those are 2 main areas. And those have been 2 areas for a while, really. It's not, this is not exclusive to 2024-25. The offensive tackle spot for the Patriots and a wide receiver, they've been without like a top line elite receiver for a long time. They were able to get away with it for a long time with Brady and the complement of people they had. And they kind of had that. They had that elite guy in Rob Gronkowski at tight end. And they had another guy who was just, uncanny in his ability to make plays and get open and be in sync with Brady and Julian Edelman, so clutch during the course of his career. But, you look at them at this point, there isn't a receiver right now that forces opposing teams, defensive coordinators for opposing teams to really focus on and say, we can't let that guy beat us. The other part of it for me, though, is on defense, they got to be able to get more pressure on the quarterback. They're not taking the ball away. They used to be able to scheme things up. They haven't had elite pass rushers for any length of time during my career calling the games. This is my 12th season. Chandler Jones had that potential for the Pats, and he certainly fulfilled, that promise for a brief time with the Arizona Cardinals. Matthew Judon was a very high-level player for the Pats for a couple of years as a Pro Bowl caliber outside linebacker, edge player. But, somebody who can really affect games from that defensive end spot. So where they're going to be drafting, you figure it's going to be, right now they're in the 4th spot. You figure it's going to be whether they win or 1 or 2 more games, which is a long shot considering the strength of the schedule they play. They're going to have a top 5 pick. And maybe that means, the best 1 or 2 wide receivers. Maybe it means the best offensive tackle. Or I think it could very well mean the best edge rusher, somebody who can have an impact on games from that premium position.
Also, besides the draft, Bob, do you feel the Patriots could be more active in free agency in the offseason?
I think they will be, Chris. I think there are a lot of needs to fill. I don't think, though, that, now you look at like the receiver position, for example. I think it has to be part of a strategy. I don't think you can go into the offseason in the NFL and say, okay, we're going to rebuild our team through free agency and just throw a lot of contracts. The Pats did that in 2021 to a large extent. And they hit on some and they missed on others. And, they have a lot of cap space going into this year. So they've got money to spend. And so let's just say, hypothetically, they take a tackle or they go with an edge rusher with their first pick. Well, maybe they can induce a guy like T. Higgins to strongly consider them, although he's going to have a lot of suitors. I'm just throwing that name out there because it's one that's mentioned all the time here locally. So maybe it's part of a strategy in that respect, where it's a combination of things. But I think what they really have to use free agency for more than anything, they want to be a draft and develop team. And they've talked about that. Elliot Wolf, the general manager, the de facto GM, the vice president of player personnel, head coach Troy Mayo, they've stressed that over and over again for the last year or so. They want to be a draft and development team. Where free agency comes into play, though, is giving you some experienced players in the locker room who know how to win, who can be leaders by example more than word in the locker room, on the practice field. Guys that can shore up areas where they're thin and or weak. positions where they really need improvement, because you're not going to be able to cover all those things through the draft. In particular, you're not going to have veteran leadership, guys who've been experienced in winning cultures on winning teams. You're not going to get those guys right away out of the draft. So I think it has to be kind of a complementary piece to what they do this offseason.
Because I feel, Bob, with the right draft and maybe some good free agent pickups, the AFC East, obviously Buffalo is the kings of the East for now, but Miami has regressed. The Jets are kind of a disaster right now. So I really think with the right offseason moves, the Patriots could compete for the second place in the AFC East next year, being optimistic.
Yeah, that's very optimistic, Chris. I mean, I think the Patriots really realistically have a long way to go to get to where they want to go. But, in the NFL, I mean, if you have the quarterback and, other premium spots, things can change quickly. And the Patriots, I think, have two of those premium position players. They have Drake May, they have Christian Gonzalez. And again, if you find a solid tackle and or wide receiver and or an edge rusher, you get another piece. You find all three of them. Now you're ready to go to work. So I think but you're absolutely. I think you start with the rosters of the teams in your division. Elliot Wolf, his dad Ron Wolf, told me one time when he took over the Packers, he looked at the Vikings, Bears, Lions, and said, "Okay, this is who we got to compete with to win our division. We're going to start there. Okay, at this position, that position, the other position. This is where they're better. This is where we're better. Okay, how do we get better at those positions? Well, right now we're trailing those teams. And I think that the Patriots have to do, obviously, is look at the division first. The Jets are having a terrible year, but the Jets still have a lot of individual talent on that team. I think a lot of their problems stem from kind of the dysfunction of their organization, and as well what the quarterback has brought to that situation. I think, making it worse instead of better. I think with the Dolphins, Miami is a team with incredible speed offensively, but they certainly have underachieved this year overall, and a lot of that has had to do with the injury at quarterback, with Tua being out for so long. But even defensively, I think there's still a lot of questions about the Dolphins and where they are. But they still have some individual players that are really, really good. Javon Holland's a terrific player at safety. I look at Jalen Ramsey, a veteran player, obviously, that they got well into his career, but he's still a great cornerback. So, and there's some other guys too who've been hurt, like Jalen Phillips. Brooks, a good player at the linebacker spot. I mean, Chop Robinson has really come on for them on the defensive line as an edge rusher. So there's a lot of talent there too, in comparison to the Patriots.
Hey, Bob, do you have time for 5 more minutes? A couple more quick questions?
Let's do it, Chris. You got it.
All right, Bob, I appreciate it. Hey, I was at the NFL draft in Detroit, by the way. It was an amazing experience. And you know what? Detroit's a great sports town, but I'll tell you this. If the Lions ever win a Super Bowl, it would be the biggest party in the state of Michigan's history. And I was able to see Jaden Daniels, Bo Nix, and Drake May. Wanted to ask you this. How much has Drake May improved since training camp? And also, I asked this to Ben Volen from the Boston Globe a few weeks ago, who's on my show. Ben's a good guy too, by the way. I said, is there physically, I see so many similarities between him and Josh Allen, except I think Drake May is a little bit, I'd agree with Ben on this. Drake May's development might be a little bit ahead of Josh Allen, who was drafted by the Bills in 2018.
Yeah, I don't like to make those comparisons. I think it's it's unfortunate. I don't think it's fair to either player.
Okay.
Especially the young guy, but it's a comparison a lot of people made about Drake May coming out of college. I mean, there always are comps when you're scouting whatever sport you're scouting for. I know it because of my best friend was a baseball scout. And you when you file your report, you give a comp. Okay, at best case, this player that I'm scouting, he could be Chris Pomey or Bob Socci. In the case of Drake May, one of the guys that people compared him to coming out of North Carolina was Josh Allen, another Justin Herbert. Hunter Henry gave some credence to the Herbert comparison last week as Justin's former teammate when asked about Drake May. But I think with Allen, he's such a physical force in terms of his running style And we saw that especially, in that game last week in the snow, and the various ways he scored touchdowns, and affected that game for Buffalo. He's just incredible the way he played against the Niners. But I think to your point, and what Ben had to say, like when I go back and think about Josh Allen, and even when I thought about the Patriots drafting Drake May, one of the things I said to people around here that I talked to is that, I hope people here realize, like, as much as we're hyping this kid coming out of Carolina as the number 3 overall pick and his potential, like it took Josh Allen a while before it really clicked. I mean, I remember watching him in his first couple of years, and even, frankly, a few years ago, there was that wind game. You recall the wind and snow game.
Yes.
Patriots
Yes.
and Bills in 2021. And I remember the narrative here on our local station, and I bought in. I shared the same sentiment. Is that what, that game came down to the Bills in the red zone, and Bill Belichick was content. The Patriots were content with trying to make Josh Allen beat them throwing the ball late in that game, and he couldn't do it. Well, guess what? The next game and the game after that in the playoffs, and the Bills, rolled over the Patriots. Allen was fantastic, and it's never been the same since. But it took a while for him to reach that point, and he had to have a lot of help around him to do it too. But I do think that point about Drake May, the way he played quarterback last week too, the feel for the position, the ball placement, the reading of defense, the way he distributed the ball. 6 different receivers had 3 or more catches for the Pats in that game against the Colts. That to me in firsthand experience is not something that I saw from Allen in his first couple of years. But what we've seen from Josh Allen these last few years, it's really something that we probably have never seen before in the NFL, with his physical size and force to go with what he can do with his arm and his passing. Elway is a guy that someone might compare him to, but kind of a combination of Elway, Cam Newton,
Jim Kelly.
Yeah,
minus the athleticism. Jim Kelly wasn't a very mobile quarterback.
No, and I think the way he plays, and there's one particular play, and May almost made him, count for a touchdown the last game that reminds me most of all of Josh Allen, and that's where he's rolling to the far sideline, going to the right sideline, and he doesn't give up on a play, and he somehow finds a way to feed a frozen rope to a receiver along the sideline of the end zone. We saw Allen make a play like that. We're watching it across the field in Buffalo in the playoff game. I think it was to Dawson Knox, and like giving up on the play. Next thing wait, the ball he completed it for a touchdown. Well, May threw one like that the other day that was caught out of bounds by Booty. And he had another one earlier in the season that was nullified because a receiver went out of bounds and then came back in and caught it.
I was going to say, I know it's a tough season, Bob, 3-10, but I really do see hope for this franchise. And I think that's what gives the fan base and the media hope, is this Drake May is going to continue to develop. What would you like to see him or the team would like to see Drake improve upon before the end of this season going into 2025?
Yeah, Chris, I think there's, always things that he needs to improve upon. And, like Tom Brady did with himself. I remember when he was well into his career. That's not to compare. We've already made a comparison between Drake May and Josh Allen. I said, no, I'm not comparing him to Tom. But one thing I will say, like when Tom was at the peak of his powers, I mean, he became a more mobile quarterback, not an athletic quarterback like May by any stretch. But I remember him, I think it was around 2016 or so, 2015, 16, 17, like talking about like he wanted to make more extended plays. And we kind of saw that from him. And I think this is the greatest quarterback of all time already. He's been for a long time, and he's still always looking to improve. So that's always got to be there. And I think May has the kind of personality, it seems. All indications are that that's the way he's going to be as his career evolves. But, the turnovers, again, we'll go back to the point that we hit on right at the outset. Whether you're playing quarterback for the Toronto Argonauts, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, or the New England Patriots, you can't turn the ball over. Last week he had an interception that really was more unfortunate, more unlucky than it was a poor play on his part or Hunter Henry's part. And Drake said he could have better ball placement with the ball that hit off of Henry on the ground at the 1-yard line and caromed to a Colt for an interception. But I think that's been an area of focus for him of late. He had a couple of turnovers the previous week against the Dolphins. One of them kind of carelessly handling the ball while he was being sacked, trying to make a play. So it's just that judgment too, like when to try to keep extending a play, when to know the journey's over. Same thing goes with when he runs. It's more or less, I think, a lot of the things associated with his strengths and not exposing himself to injury, not exposing the football, in risking turnovers, even while he's trying to make a big play for the Patriots.
Calling his games, Bob, do you see, especially being a young quarterback in Drake May, do you see he still has a little bit of tunnel vision?
Chris, I'll be honest with you, I don't. And I think the step that I mentioned earlier, the fact that when you say tunnel vision, do you mean like singular focus on one receiver, or? And I think that's how I'm inferring it. And the thing I would say is, the last game he hasn't shown that at all. Or he didn't show that at all with the way he distributed the ball. And I think he's been like that from the start. I mean, we've seen him build a chemistry with Kayshon Boutte, who's had a good second year for the Pats at receiver. The way he's thrown to Hunter Henry and Austin Hooper. He's not just looking for those guys, though. I think he's been able to go wherever there's an open guy who's in the right place at the right time. And for the Patriots, they just haven't had enough of those guys so far this season, to consistently get open for him, and be in the spot where they can make plays. But I think what we've seen from him is the evolution of a kid who came into the league with a lot of things to learn and to try to develop. Forget about mastering them. He came from a North Carolina system where he never took snaps under center. He was always in the shotgun. He didn't call plays. He didn't call play in a huddle. He always looked to the sideline and get the signal from the coaches. He had to come in here and learn an NFL offense, play from under center. There's still got to be some areas of improvement. His footwork was certainly in question coming out of Carolina. That so far has been great. I think his eyes downfield, even when he's running and making yards on the ground, his vision is still, downfield, looking for somebody to make a play with his arm before he tries to make one happen with his legs. So I think overall, he's a quarterback that certainly seems to be well-rounded in his view of the field, if you will, but also in what he wants to accomplish and how he wants to develop as a player.
Quick thoughts, Bob, on head coach Jerod Mayo, his first year as a Patriots head coach, and just thoughts on some of the coaching staff. And do you feel this coaching staff will be back for a second year with this organization for this team?
Well, I do think, I think the coaching staff by and large will be back for next year. I don't think there's any question. Jerod Mayo, in my mind. I think Alex Van Pelt, the offensive coordinator, has done a good job in developing man. A lot of people here have been very critical of him and would like to see the offense become more innovative. I think what he's done, though, the last few weeks is an indicator that, he's brought Mayo along. And as Drake has developed, now he's opened up the playbook a little bit more to build the offense around Drake May and what he can do, as opposed to trying to build Drake May up, through a more basic offense earlier in the season. And with DeMarcus, he's a guy who certainly has been heavily scrutinized. A young coach. I think he's a really bright guy. I think he's someone who's really well liked by the players. I think somebody who does have a real bright future. It's a big jump to go from defensive line coach to defensive coordinator, and it's been a challenging year certainly for him in that defense. First with the injuries, and now, of course, with the uneven play, if you will, but more recently, the troubles they've had against the Rams and the Colts. It has really put the focus on him. They have a big staff, a first-year coordinator on special teams, first-year coordinator on defense, your first time as a full-time play caller as the coordinator on offense. A lot of coaches that are new to the Patriots, a lot of coaches that are still very relatively new in comparison to the NFL. I would expect that there's probably going to be some changes this coming off season. Jerod Mayo came to the Patriots, out of Tennessee as a player. The only place he ever played was New England. The only place he's ever coached is New England. So he didn't have a lot of network. He didn't have a lot of contacts in his network, where he could really build a staff, through that network of contacts that a lot of coaches accumulate over the course of their careers, because they bounce around and move from team to team in college and then the NFL. So I think that, from Jerod's standpoint, he's probably learning a lot about the guys on his staff and who he wants to be retained. And he's talked about it too. He's got a lot to learn as a coach, first-year head coach. It's something that I don't think that you can ever be fully prepared. You can ever be prepared for until you do it. And he's someone who's still very, very relatively inexperienced as a football coach at the NFL level, let alone a head coach. But he's a bright guy. He's a guy with a great, I think, sense of connecting with people. He's well respected in the locker room. His team is playing hard. They've got to learn from the things that have not gone well, stating the obvious, particularly in self scouting, decision making, and how they arrive at decisions and the kind of decisions they make. I think he's got to find his coaching voice, if you will, his guiding philosophy, like in game strategy wise. But I think he's going to have an opportunity to grow. He's going to have an opportunity because Drake May, in his abilities, give the organization that opportunity too. I think to try to build the foundation, which is not a 1-year deal. I think it's going to take a couple of years before they're really, really, truly ready to contend.
You know this, Bob, too, in sports. Our society wants instant turnaround right away, but it takes time. Wanted to ask you this, Bob. What is Mayo's biggest strength as a head coach?
Well, I think the biggest thing for me, Chris, is I would say the connection that he has to the players and the buy-in. I think like in any sport, as important as strategy is, X's and O's, what it really comes down to is managing people. What makes the best baseball managers? Is it the great tactician who's able to, plot the strategy in the late innings? And probably less so today because of the DH. It's universal, as opposed to back in the National League days when there was no designated hitter, when you knew when to hit and run, when you knew when to put the sacrifice bunt on, when you knew how to handle it. You had to handle a bullpen a lot differently, than today. When there were starting pitchers and there was a bullpen, and you had to think about how you were going to, handle a pitcher, knowing that you were probably going to have a pinch hitter coming up in the next half inning, et cetera. In any other sport, you can sit with your dry erase board and diagram basketball plays, and you might have the best inbounds plays in all of basketball. But if you can't communicate and you can't manage and motivate people, well, ultimately you will not be successful at the top, the highest level. There are a lot of very, very smart people who are great schemers, great coordinators, guys who know how to devise a playbook and strategy and know how to call plays and execute that strategy. But when it comes to managing 53 players, and it's a lot more than that, there's guys in the practice and all the guys who come and go, and how to assuage egos and how to help players through tough times. Young players trying to establish themselves in the NFL, older players maybe starting to have doubt creep into their minds about how long they can continue to play in the NFL. I mean, those are the things that I think separate successful coaches from those who are not. And I think Gerard has that potential to be a guy who, because of his people skills, because of the buy-in that he has from his players, the respect that he engenders from people, but also the respect that he pays to people in the organization. As someone who's got the football background, but also spent some time in the business sector, so he can relate to people in the C-suite. He can relate to people on support staff, but he really can relate to the people in the locker room. And I think that's what gives him the opportunity.
What's the overall mood of the media and the fan base in New England after having that 20-year dynasty and now kind of rebuilding the team up?
Well, I think there's a lot, here there's incredibly high, and some would say impossibly high expectations for all the sports teams, Chris. And I think in Mayo's case, he certainly has been questioned and criticized a lot increasingly in the media. He's talked about it. He did a podcast with Tom Curran on NBC Sports Boston here locally, Quick Slants, and they talked about the scrutiny that the coach is under. And I think he's got the right frame of mind, when it comes to that. I think there's a mix of optimism because of the quarterback Drake May and skepticism because of the close losses that you mentioned earlier. But I think overall, for people that are in the media that cover the team, you look at the quarterback in Drake May, and you say they've got a chance. And now they have to do a lot to capitalize on Drake May's potential and try to help him realize that potential so the team can realize its potential or realize the goals that, don't change here in New England with any teams, which means you got to compete for championships. You got to win championships. So, I think they have the most important piece, but I think that, for a lot of people right now in the moment, they're frustrated at the 3-10 record, how they've gotten here, that loss to Indianapolis. If they go out in 2 weeks and pop it, Arizona out in Glendale, or they can, somehow find a way to knock off Buffalo or the Chargers at home in those last 2 games of the season, well, things may change in terms of that narrative. And that's the great thing about sports, and that's the cool thing about, the situation here too. Joe Mazzulla is a great example. We're talking about coaches, right? I mean, I was just doing some research and thinking about how Mazzulla kind of changed the narrative for him from when he took over as the interim coach for Ime Udoka, kind of in a way over his head a little bit, because he goes from behind the bench, like literally like behind the bench, to like being the guy in very unenviable circumstances with a talent-rich team and high expectations. And he was criticized a lot his first year, and now he's kind of the model. He's the blueprint, of a young coach who's really strong of mind and purpose, and has become the youngest head coach since Bill Russell to win an NBA championship. So it can be done as he's proven locally, but there's a lot to be done. There's a lot more that it takes in football, I think, than basketball. There's they might have their Jason Tatum. Now they need to find maybe Christian Gonzalez is the Jalen Brown, but now they got to find the Drew Holidays and all the other pieces, the Porzingises and all the other pieces that will really get them to where they want to go.
I wanted to ask you this, Bob, before we wrap this up. Obviously, the loss to the Colts was tough. Would it have been better off for them to get back in the saddle and play this week, or did this bye week come at a good time for this team?
Well, Chris, I think in my opinion, I think the bye week is best when it's in the middle of the season. It's late this year, and I think that for them, there's no bad time for the bye. They lost a game against Jacksonville, and they play the next week, and they bounced back and they beat the Jets. And they bounced back very well. So I think that like you look at their situation, and maybe you want to be back out there. But I think anytime you get a bye, it's not a bad thing. I think you want to preferably have the bye more toward the middle of the season than when there are 4 games to go. But given the situation, I think it can be a real positive for them. I think especially too when you're talking about like the larger picture. For the Patriots organization, when it comes to kind of evaluating, okay, what do we got to do these next 4 games in order to find out about the players for next year? And that's where I think this Week 14 bye really can have an effect on next year's roster, because it gives the coaches the opportunity. They're going to do self-scouting of themselves, but also in the evaluation process for their players too. Okay, saying, all right, this is the lineup we've got to come out with on the offensive line. This is the personnel we're going to go roll with against Arizona defensively, because we got to find out about A, B, C, and D so that we know whether we can count on those guys, if they're going to be part of the plans for next year, or as we formulate our free agent and draft strategy, are those guys we're going to replace next year.
Finally, Bob, what are your thoughts on the Thursday night matchup between the Packers and Lions? And I'm going to put you on the spot here. Who do you feel is the NFL's MVP in 2024? Josh Allen or Saquon Barkley?
Josh Allen. Barkley's been great. Barkley's been great, but it's Josh Allen. I think Philadelphia's defense, it doesn't get enough of the credit for the Eagles' success. And Barkley's been phenomenal for Philadelphia. But I think Josh Allen has to be the MVP. Again, as we saw in that game against San Francisco, there's just so many ways. And he means so much to that team and to that city. And when I think about like most valuable player, certainly, and I think there's a bunch of other candidates too in the NFL this year, but I think Josh Allen is the definition of that for the top team right now in the AFC, in my opinion, the Buffalo Bills.
Who do you see as the top team in the NFC? There's the Vikings, the Lions, the Packers, I think, and obviously the Philadelphia Eagles.
Well, I think the Lions. And now having said that, though, I mean, I think Philadelphia has been to the Super Bowl with large number of the players who were there. The Lions last year came so close to getting there. I like the way Detroit approaches the game, the way Dan Campbell coaches his team. He's somebody that is unwavering in his philosophy and his style, and his team reflects his toughness and the grit of the city. And I think Jared Goff has been, one of the more compelling stories in the NFL the last few years, how he's been able to turn his career around after being let go by the Rams, seeing Matthew Stafford win the championship, and be in a situation where the Lions were really struggling. They were 9-26, halfway through Campbell's third season, and what they've done since. I think they've gone 31-8 since that point. So when I think about like the Lions and how they play and kind of the overall like the stories of Campbell and Goff, people like that, I'm really taken by them. So I hope that they're there. It would be an incredible Super Bowl if it's Detroit and Buffalo. When you talk about two cities, great sports towns, but really great football towns, and fans that have suffered for a long, long time, enduring disappointment. As good as the Bills have been at points in the 90s and more recently, to go continually without a championship realized, the championship hopes realized, I think you can still consider them long suffering.
I'm going to go with the rematch of the Super Bowl 57. I think people are forgetting about the Kansas City Chiefs, and I think the Philadelphia Eagles have this underdog mentality, and Jalen Hurts might not have the biggest quarterback numbers out there, but he just wins 35-9 in his last 44 starts. And the Eagles are old school, play great defense and run the ball. So I think it could be a Philly Kansas City matchup. But what I would like to see in the NFC would be Philadelphia and Detroit, possibly.
Chris, I think it could easily be that. I'm not a very good predictor. I don't gamble.
So Neither do I.
For that. But I'll tell you this much, though. I know with 100% certainty, and I will say this, and through February, even if it happens that it's Philadelphia and Kansas City, I don't want to see either team in the Super Bowl. I want to see Detroit and
Buffalo
or somebody else, anybody other than Kansas City or Philadelphia. I think that it's incredible what the Chiefs are doing, what they've done. And I've gained a sense of how people around the league might have felt about the Patriots when the Pats perennially, we're in the hunt for a Super Bowl championship. So we'll see.
And finally, Bob, what's the best place for my audience to follow you on social media? And your next game against the Cardinals, when do you and Scott go on air on 98.5, the Sports Hub in Boston, for that game against the Cardinals on the West Coast, I believe?
Yeah, we'll be on the air 1:00 Eastern time. We go on right before kickoff. There is a long pregame show on 98.5, the Sports Hub, but we have a couple of segments on that show, one apiece. I do an interview with the players, Zoe does a scene setter with our pregame show hosts. But we go on together a few minutes before kickoff, give some thoughts about the keys to the game, and then take a break and come back with the kickoff of the game and call the play-by-play. So that's how we'll do it in 2 weeks on Sunday, December
15th.
15th. Thank you, Chris. When the Patriots take on the Arizona Cardinals, 1:00 Eastern time. As far as the did I say 1:00 Eastern time, Chris?
Yes, you did. It'd probably be 1:00 Arizona time.
It's actually, I think it's listed at 4:25 on the schedule. Maybe it's
okay.
So yeah, so I try to stay on the local time so I don't screw things up. And when I'm out there, here I am screwing it up on the podcast. But yeah, whatever. Close to 4:00. Log on to 98.5 the Sports Hub, pull it up on your app, and you can listen to the end of the pregame show, and then here's Zoe and I come on the air. As far as the Patriots and social media and me, I'm on all the different platforms at Bob Socci, BOBSOCCI. I don't tweet as much, and it's still Twitter to me as I used to. I'm now on Blue Sky as well. I'm on Instagram. Okay. And LinkedIn, whatever, whatever the platform is, I'm there.
Hey, Bob, I want to say thank you so much for giving us an hour out of your busy schedule. And I'm going to make a donation to the Boston Food Bank in your behalf for your kindness of coming on my show. And really appreciate your support and friendship here the last couple of years as well. And I will get down to Boston again. And I want to get down to Gillette Stadium as either media or as a fan. And hopefully one day we can have a beer with you as well.
Chris, I really appreciate that. Thank you so much for your generosity. I'm very happy for you that you're continuing not only to cultivate a career for yourself, but achieving success, in a lot of different places, uh, Buffalo, in the South, in the Toronto area. You've done well for yourself, and you should be very proud of yourself. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you. And there's two words that Sean McDermott says to his team that I apply to myself as well. Stay humble and stay hungry and never get complacent. And I just love doing what I'm doing. And I'm hoping to cover every 32 NFL teams here to get everybody's perspective as well.
All right. Well, I look forward to hearing more of your work and being on with you again, maybe before too long.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Bob. Have a great night. Merry Christmas to you and your family. Happy holidays. And we'll definitely keep in touch with you on social media.
Happy holidays, Chris. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Bob. All right, guys. That concludes season 9, episode 24. Overall 464 of Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show. I want to say thank you to my guest, Bob Socci, the longtime radio play-by-play voice of the New England Patriots of the National Football League on 98.5, the Sports Hub in Boston. The Patriots' next game is not until Sunday, December 15th, 4:25 Eastern, 125 on the West Coast, as the Patriots take on the Arizona Cardinals as well. And we have Thursday night football tonight, guys, 8:15 on Amazon Prime or TSN in here in Canada. The 9-3 Packers take on the 11-1 Lions. And this is a huge game for both teams and also for the Eagles. The Eagles are one game behind the Lions right now. So if the Packers can upset the Lions tonight, and the Eagles can take care of business on Sunday at 1 o'clock at Lincoln Financial Field against the Carolina Panthers, the Eagles by Sunday night could be the number 1 seed. One thing about the Eagles against Carolina, the Eagles are 0-2 against the NFC South this year. Both their losses to Atlanta and Tampa Bay, so they can't take the Carolina Panthers lightly on Sunday. It looks like Darius Slay and Devontae Smith could be in that game against the Carolina Panthers. Dallas Goedert has a knee injury he suffered against Baltimore, so I don't think the big man Dallas Goedert will be playing Sunday be against Carolina. I'll be shocked as well. Before we wrap up the show, guys, the next Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show, again, sponsored by BarryCullen.com and WellingtonBrewery.ca, is going to be Saturday, December 7th at 2 p.m. Eastern with special guest Terry Granahan, a stand-up comedian. So hopefully you guys can tune in to Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show for Season 9, Episode 25, overall 465, this Saturday, December 7th at 2 p.m. with Terry Granahan. Guys, I want to give a shout-out to Ahmed from Best Buy here in Guelph. I just purchased a new HP laptop from him. So when you're at Best Buy, which is on Stone Road here in Guelph, check out Ahmed. He's a really good guy, very personable, and he sold me the right laptop. So check out Ahmed at Best Buy here in Guelph if you're looking for a new TV set, new laptop, or new headphones, or a new electronics as well. All right, guys, before we wrap up this show, I got a little video here, and I'm hoping you guys can book me a cameo. And this is courtesy of my YouTube channel. This is Chris Palme, radio host of Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show. Just wanted to let you guys know that I am now on Cameo.com. So I've joined the Cameo family. And if you'd like a personalized video message, happy birthday wishes, pep talk, talk sports with me, have to ask me a question about my radio show, my media work, be happy to do one. And for this week, my Cameo videos are only $5 US, and the proceeds from my Cameo videos will go to my radio and media work as well. So check out Chris Palme on Cameo.com, and make sure you book your Cameo today. Thank you. Good. And that was courtesy of my YouTube channel. Please hit the subscribe and like notification. And I'm trying to get to 500 subscribers. I'm at 493. So if I can get to a 500 subscriber, that 500 subscriber will get a new Live with CDP t-shirt courtesy of myself, Chris Palme, as well. And also, guys, if you want to book a Cameo, cameo.com/Chris D. Palme as well. Before we wrap up this show, guys, Wellington Brewery, founded in 1985, located at 950 Woodlawn Road West here in Guelph, Ontario. WellingtonBrewery.ca. Their phone number is 519-837-2337. Try a Wellion and please drink responsibly. Check out the Christmas Lager Mix Pack. It is your go-to gift or party favor for a truly refreshing holiday. Packed with premium lagers, this mix includes our year-round classics, the smooth Golden Helles Lager and easy drinking Boot Light Lager, plus a special seasonal treat called Crispy Forever. These crisp, clean brews are each equal. These crisp, clean brews are equally crafted for a balance of flavor, low alcohol, and ultimate refreshment, making this mix approachable for any crowd. The festive six-pack box is as handsome as it is convenient, perfect for sharing at parties or gifting to the beer lovers in your life. So check out wellingtonbrewery.ca. I'll pop by the brewery at 950 Woodlawn Road West here in Guelph, Ontario. And again, try a Wellion and please drink responsibly. And I want to say thank you to Jackie Hanna from Wellington Brewery for coming aboard live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show. Before I wrap up the show, guys, if you're looking to adopt a pet, check out the Cambridge and District Humane Society at 1650 Dunbar Road in Cambridge, Ontario. Telephone number 519-623-7722, extension 0, or visit their website, CambridgeHumaneSociety.org. All the animals up for adoption there, you can check out their website. And if you're looking to volunteer, you can do it through their website. And they're doing a 50-50 monthly raffle draw through their website, CambridgeHumaneSociety.org again, and click on events, and you can get your tickets there today. And also, yours truly is selling 2025 Cambridge District Humane Society calendars for $10 cash, or you can PayPal me at cpalme19@gmail.com, and all the proceeds goes to the Cambridge Humane Society and all the programs they do have there for our homeless animals in need. And they do great work there as well. Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show is live streamed on these platforms: YouTube, Facebook, Twitter/X, Twitch, LinkedIn, and now available on Instagram. And please remember to follow and subscribe as well. You can check out my website at beacons.ai/Chris D. Palme. Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show again is brought to you by Barry Cullen Chevrolet Dealership at 905 Woodlawn Road West in the Guelph Auto Mall. Check out barrycullen.com for the newest selection of new and pre-owned GM vehicles, or give them a call, 519-824-0210, or email the dealership at info@barrycullen.com. I've been a proud customer of Barry Cullen Chevrolet since 2000, and Barry Cullen Chevrolet dealership here in Guelph has been family run and operated since 1969. Speaking of Barry Cullen Chevrolet right now, go to service. Go to the service center this winter. A no charge battery test at Barry Cullen Chevrolet's. No charge at all for a battery test. Plus, you get a $20 instant rebate on a new AC Delco 12-volt battery. So with winter coming, it's always good to make sure your battery's at full strength. And down at Barry Cullen Chevrolet, a no charge battery test, and you get a $20 instant rebate on a new AC Delco 12 battery. More details at barrycullen.com. Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Shows coming soon. They'll be priced at $20 and available in any color. You can follow this content creator on TikTok at Live with CDP. Hit the follow and like notification. StreamYard is the official live stream provider of Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show. If you're into webinars or podcasting, check out StreamYard.com. They have basic free plans or paid professional plans such as I have. And if you're a business that does a lot of live streaming, webinars, podcasting, etc., StreamYard.com and contact the sales department. And I've been a proud customer of StreamYard.com for the last 4 years, and it's a very good live streaming service as well. Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show. The audio version is on these platforms: iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Spotify for podcasters, Apple Podcasts, Breaker, Pocket Casts, Spotify, Castbox, LinkedIn, Pandora, Tuned In, YouTube Music, and Good Pods. And please remember to hit subscribe and like. Finally, guys, you can email Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show at cpame19@gmail.com. Any comments, questions, suggestions would be greatly appreciated. And also, guys, I am on PayPal. I am looking, if you're looking to support my radio and media work, I'm on PayPal at cpame19@gmail.com as well. And that wraps up our show, guys. I want to say thank you again to Bob Socci, the voice of the New England Patriots, on 98.5 The Sports Hub in Boston, for coming on our show tonight. And thank you to everyone watching this live stream and audio. And I'm excited at 8:15 for tonight's Thursday night game, Packers and Lions from Ford Field, with Al Michaels calling the game. And then the Philadelphia Eagles are back in action Sunday at 1 o'clock at the Link against the Carolina Panthers as well. And again, guys, if you go to Best Buy in Guelph, check out Best Buy in Guelph and go see Ahmed. He's one of their sales consultants who sold me a new laptop tonight as well. And that's about it. I'm going to say this too. For NFL MVP, I'm going with Saquon Barkley. He's about to break a 40-year-old NFL record set by Eric Dickerson in 1984, 2,105 yards. I don't believe the Eagles would be 10-2 without Saquon Barkley, and to me, he's the most valuable player. I do think they should have an award for quarterbacks called the Most Valuable Quarterback Award, but the most valuable player to me is Saquon Barkley, and we'll see what happens, but Barkley's got 5 games left to break Eric Dickerson's record, and I think 4 of those 5 teams are struggling running with the run defense. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how Barkley does this the last 5 games. And the Eagles are at home at Lincoln Financial Field for 4 out of those last 5 games. Their only road game is in nearby Washington against the Commanders in a couple weeks. So we'll see. We got the Panthers, Steelers coming up at the Link, then the Commanders on the road, and then the Dallas Cowboys and the New York Giants to finish up the season as well. And that's about it. Again, thank you to Bob Socci from 98.5 The Sports Hub coming on tonight, the voice of the New England Patriots for the last 12 years. And I want to say thank you to everyone watching this live streamed and on audio platforms. And also, thank you for watching me on Stream Punk Entertainment. Check out Stream Punk Entertainment. And also, thank you to Scott Churchson for having me on his network as well. I hope everybody has a great Thursday night. Enjoy the Packers-Lions game, and we'll see you back here on Saturday, December 7th at 2 p.m. with my special guest, Terry Granahan. And also, I want to say thank you to Robbie Schneider from the 716 Sports Blizzard podcast for watching as well. Robbie's one of my biggest supporters. And check out his podcast, 716 Sports Blizzard podcast. He's on all platforms, including YouTube as well. And again, that's it. I hope everybody has a great evening, and we'll see you here on Saturday at 2 o'clock with Terry Granahan.